Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today we are playing Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, continuing on with our rating and our Lux building tips. We are going to change the topic. So I know the past 3 videos were about using the Lux Plus skill and using it efficiently. The only one that I thought of while I was making those videos that I can possibly do is putting Lux Plus on AoE versus single target medals. We're going to delve into that topic a little bit here, but that's not the focus. So the focus of this video is going to be about speed. Now, speed for raids can be broken up into 2 categories. The first one is how fast can you spawn the raid boss, and the second part is how quickly can you defeat the raid boss. This is going to be a video about defeating the raid boss, specifically delving into should you be using single target medals versus AoE medals versus random target medals. Sorry that my voice keeps breaking. I just drank some water and for some reason I'm burping, which doesn't make any sense. But anyways, these are the 3 setups that we're going to use. Now, of course, you can't see the difference in them because they're pretty much the exact same setup, with the difference being what is in our spirit slot. So in our single target setup, what we're going to be using is Illustrated Sora and Pals. It's a single target medal. I know that the fact that it's attack boost 2 Lux Plus and not 2 max Lux Plus is going to throw some things off, but it does have the damage in raids and extra attack, meaning that it's going to get a lot of damage in for a single target medal. The second setup we're going to use is going to be using Sora Art EX, which is an area of effect medal, and it's going to have AB4 max Lux Plus. And then finally, in our last one, we are using Key Art Bonds that is boosted. It has the plus 1000 strength trait, as well as AB4 max. So I know that kind of looking at the setups we're using. Sorry, I need to explain this first. It's copying the Illustrated Donald B, which is a random target medal. So that's why we're using that in our third setup. It's gonna have that random going on for it. So I know the medals are very different. I know that, it seems like it's going to be very inconsistent because there's a lot of things that are changing when you change that last medal, and you change conditions, you change strengths, multipliers, all that stuff. But again, the purpose of this video is to show you guys how to quickly defeat the raid boss. So the reason a lot of people like using single target medals is because they hit just the raid boss and nothing else. So for all these demos, we're going to be using one of my party members, Valor Genie. It's boosted. It has AB4 max, meaning that's going to be consistent damage popping out. It has damage in raids. It's perfect for going through these raid bosses quickly. So let's go ahead, and I have a timer right here. We are going to go through our raid boss and see how quickly we can go through it. So we have the timer running. I don't know if you could really see it well. But yeah, I'll keep this up here so that you can kind of see how quickly we're going to go through the raid boss with a single target medal. Again, it has a Lux skill on it. It has AB2 Lux Plus on it. It has damage in raids as well as extra attack. So it is a very powerful single target medal. But the fact that it's not a Lux skill, see, it didn't activate there. The fact that it's not a Lux or a max skill is kind of going to nerf our test a little bit by showing you that it's not as powerful as it could be. But hopefully it's still to everyone's liking. Hopefully people can kind of see, what the point of the test was and why it's important to choose, single target versus AoE versus random target medals. Man, it didn't activate there either. We're having bad luck with this activation of this skill. It really doesn't want to help us prove our tests. Okay, so we're going to stop it there. We had it at about 1 minute and 20 seconds using a single target medal. Again, we're not talking about Lux building right now, because Lux building is a totally different topic. That's what we talked about in the first few videos. We're talking about speed. Because speed is important. You have to get through these raid bosses efficiently in order to make the most out of your bonus hour, where you're getting, ×2 the amount of Lux. So speed is important because you need to be able to go through these raid bosses quickly and efficiently in order to generate a high amount of Lux. Especially with, again, that bonus hour where you're going to be making ×2 the Lux, it's important to be able to go through the raid boss quickly versus sluggishly. The faster you go through the raid boss, the more Lux you're pumping out within that hour, or in any sort of general time frame that's more Lux that you're pumping out quickly, efficiently, and that's how you're going to get more overall Lux for the week. Okay, so now we're going to be using our AoE medal, our Sora Art EX. This one's going to be a little bit more consistent because it has a max skill on it, meaning it's going to be doing consistent damage from turn to turn, versus Illustrated Sora and Pals, which sort of did inconsistent damage due to attack boost 2 Lux plus not continuously proccing. So let's go ahead into our raid boss with our setup. Again, the same setup. The only difference is that we have another medal that's AoE, that's area of effect, versus something that's single target and focuses all its damage onto one component. This is gonna really make a difference for people that, you know, want to see, should I put single target medals or area of effect medals? Which one should I give my Lux Plus skill to? So I know that's sort of like a different topic altogether. That's something that needs to be developed. I need to check, you know, what setups I can make to prove certain theories. But for now, we're going with speed. We're going with damage dealing speed and getting rid of a raid boss quickly. Oh, you know what? I didn't set a timer on this one. Oh shoot, I should have really set a timer on this one. You know what? I'm gonna just reference it in the comments later, what kind of speed we're cranking out on this. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry guys. I should have had that timer going. It kind of just slipped my mind right now. So again, this isn't as good of a test just because the Illustrated Sora and Pals didn't have a max skill on it, meaning that it was pushing out inconsistent damage. It's also a lower tier, so that was that setup. I know this is kind of weird. I shouldn't be asking the audience to participate really, but if you could just do the math, check the timer, and see what the difference was. I'll go through this video again and then just kind of put the times in the video description. So now we've got one more setup to do. This is going to be with our random target medal, and then I'm going to kind of explain why it's important to, you know, kind of pick your single targets versus AoE versus random target medals. Or maybe I'll just make a separate video for that altogether. We'll just use this as sort of like our proof. It's kind of flaky proof because, again, that single target medal should have been faster than the area of effect medal, just because area of effect medals spread their damage versus concentrating it on a single enemy, whereas a single target medal is just like laser focused. It only hits one limb and does damage to one limb. Okay, so that should generate our... Oops, sorry, I just hit the microphone. That should generate our last raid boss. So we are going to be using a random target medal. And let's go ahead. Let me put this down. I got my timer in hand. And the minute it says battle begins. Okay, we have the timer running. This is honestly going to be the most important one out of the three. So here we are. We're punching our boss again. The time for the single target, I believe, was 1 minute and 20 seconds. The time for the middle one, the area of effect one, I want to say was either the same, if not a little bit longer than the first one. It should have been longer. In theory, it should have been longer. So everything else has max skills on it. So really, this is a good comparison between using AoE and random target medals, and by convention, single target medals. And I'll explain why at the end of this video. I know this video is getting long. It's at like 10 minutes, and thank you so much for bearing with me on this. I just really want to help players improve, and I hope just these few minutes can exponentially speed up their game. Okay, so we defeated the raid boss. Let's keep it running just so I can show you guys. So overall, we saved like 10 seconds. We saved 10 seconds using a random target medal versus an area of effect medal. Now, here's where we talk about the theory a little bit more. So the reason you want to use random target metals, which was supposed to be the best run out of all of those, the reason you want to use a random target metal is mainly because of the multiplier. So let's go ahead, hop into our equipment. So as you can see, this is our single target metal. It has a multiplier of 3.91, hits for a single target, it's tier 4. And again, it has the traits, which kind of make it like tier 6-ish, because when you add that 40% damage to already 130% guilt, that's roughly about like 170% damage. I'm not 100% sure if that's correct. But the idea is that you're pounding a single target with that 3.91 multiplier, which is really high. So we'll move on to into our second, not stroke of midnight. We will move on into our second setup of counterpoint, which is using this area of effect metal that is 3.48 area of effect damage versus single target damage, meaning that it should be weaker overall because the multiplier is lower and because it should be spreading its damage, unlike a single target metal, which is concentrating all of its damage onto one focus point. The last one is the most important one. So we had the copy metal copy this metal here. So it was copying a metal that had a super high multiplier. And the reason that's important is because random target metals generally have very, very high multipliers. And that's why when they came out, people were, kind of ecstatic, because what happens is that once you get rid of all the limbs in a raid boss, you're left with the central body, the main body that has a ridiculous amount of HP in comparison to the limbs. When you have a random target metal, it normally would hit anything that counts as a target. So it would hit limbs, it would hit the main body, and that would all be random. It wouldn't be like, I'm going to hit each one once, cycle again, hit each one once again. It could concentrate all of its attacks on the limbs, all of its attacks on the body, or just some sort of mix of the two. When you get rid of the limbs in a raid boss, all that's left is the central body, meaning that all the hits of the random target metal are going to go straight into that body. They're not going to stray away, meaning that you're pretty much hitting a raid boss with a single target metal that has a really, really high multiplier. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. So, Meowjesty, for example, when this metal came out, it was crazy because it has a 4.25 multiplier. That is really high in terms of damage output. Let's compare that to a tier 3 single target red metal. So let's go ahead, attack only. What is my strongest single target red metal right now? Okay, so let's compare it. Master Ericus is not a good idea because Master Ericus is a single target metal that has a really high multiplier. Like, this is ridiculous. But let's compare it to Kingdom Hearts 2 Black Coat Riku B. So it has a lower multiplier, that 3.8. It costs the same amount of gauges as Meowjesty, meaning it's a little bit more consistent with the random target metals doing more damage. But the point is that random target metals do more damage than single target metals, which will do more damage than multi-target metals. So the idea is that you kind of focus in by defeating all the limbs as fast as you can with your first few metals, and then going in at the very end with random target metals, which will have really, really high multipliers, or at the very least single target metals that have really, really high multipliers. So what metals am I talking about? I'm talking about metals like Hercules B, I'm talking about metals like Valorform Genie, because these guys are single target metals that have ridiculously high multipliers. So the idea is that you increase the speed of defeating raid bosses by going in with high multiplier, single target or random target metals, which will focus in all their attacks, all their strength into that central body. That way you're getting rid of the raid boss faster, making more use of your time, and being able to defeat more raid bosses within that, a single unit of time, whether that's your bonus raid hour, whether you're raiding off times, off bonus times. So I know this was kind of a flakier example just because there's such a wide variation in metals. You might have tier 5 AoE metal versus, the tier 4 single target metals. So it's really based on your damage output. That's really the main point of this video, is to have a very, very high damage output. And it was just a technique where you use random target medals with high multipliers, single target medals with high multipliers, or if you're really stuck in a corner and you only have high multiplier, high tier AoE medals, then go in with that. So that's another way you can speed up your raiding. How you can get more Lux is by defeating the raid boss really quickly, because the more raid bosses you defeat, the more Lux you build, and that's just, again, going to boost your score up, it's going to boost your party up, it's going to get you into those top ranks, it's going to get your party into those top ranks. So I know this was kind of a flakier video in comparison to the other videos, which were a little bit easier to explain due to consistency. But if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to throw them in the comments below. If the video was really that bad, I will make it again with a little bit more consistent results. I'll come in a little bit more prepared. But if you have any just general questions, feel free to throw them down below, and I will try my best to answer them. But with that being said, this is a video talking about speeding your raid boss battles up by inflicting more damage on them. Until the next video, everyone, take it easy.